Jake Paul is off the hook with the feds for roaming an Arizona mall as it was being looted by George Floyd protesters. We're told he will not be prosecuted. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Arizona tells TMZ. Prosecutors will not be pursuing federal charges against Jake for his conduct in the Scottsdale shopping center days after Floyd's murder. Talkin' to the streets. As we reported, video shows Jake inside the mall while it was being looted back on May 30, 2020, and he was arrested for trespass and charged with a criminal misdemeanor. If you're looking for a new dessert that involves fresh fruit, then when have the perfect recipe for you. The city attorney didn't pursue the case, but kicked it up to the feds, who launched an investigation. As part of that investigation, federal agents later raided Jake's home in Calabasas and the famous graffiti mansion in Las Vegas. We know weapons were confiscated from both homes, but it remains unclear how, or if, they were connected to the Scottsdale incident for which Jake was arrested. In any event, the feds now say they didn't find enough evidence to charge him for anything. Jake's attorneys David Chesnoff and Richard Schoenfeld tell TMZ, "We are pleased that the U.S. Apple turnovers may sound like a lot of hard work, but they are surprisingly easy to make." Attorney reached the conclusion that no charges should be filed. In fact, this recipe is simple enough for a beginner to make, so whether it's your first time baking or you're a seasoned pro, anyone can whip up these treats. To get started, you will need some fresh apples, puff pastry, and a few other items, and will be well on your way to putting the dish together. You can serve these apple turnovers for several occasions, including a bake sale, dinner party, or for dessert after a simple family dinner. The combination of puff pastry and warm apples complement each other so well, and the flavors in this dish are absolutely spectacular. Honestly, we're getting hungry just thinking about it. Recipe developer Eric Go developed this simple yet scrumptious recipe that is sure to be a new family favorite. He says that he loves is the ease. "What I like most about this recipe is that anyone can do it," Go says. The most challenging part in making apple turnovers is making the puff pastry. Of course, making your own puff pastry is ideal, but it's quite the challenge for the average baker. I also like how they freeze very well and are great for weekend breakfasts. If your mouth is already watering, keep scrolling to see how to make this yummy dessert. Gather the ingredients to prepare these easy apple turnovers. For the first step in the process, it's always best to make a grocery list to see what you need in order to whip up this yummy concoction. If you're in luck, you may already have a few items at home, making your trip to the store easy peasy. For starters, grab one roll of puff pastry. In addition, grab a few apples that will need to be peeled and diced. I like using golden delicious apples for their sweetness, Go says. This is a great recipe to try out the next time you go apple picking. Another item on the list includes water, which you should already have at home. Like we always say, free ingredients are the best ingredients. Last but not least, you will need a single egg. Once you have those items together, it's off to the races. Cook the apples. For starters, take out a pan that is big enough to fit all of your diced apples. Place the apples and water in the pan, and cook the fruit for about 15 minutes on medium heat. Continue cooking until the apples begin to soften. Be sure to stir every minute or so to prevent the apples from sticking to the bottom of the pan and burning. After all, a burned apple will not taste too good in the turnover. When you finish cooking the apples, take the apples out of the pan, and transfer them to a bowl or dish. Then, set them aside, and let them cool down for a few minutes. Add the puff pastry and egg wash. Once the apples have cooled down, unwrap the puff pastry. Before doing anything else, make sure that the puff pastry is cold, and then cut it into quarters. Then, take out the egg wash, and apply it to the corners of the puff pastry. Once the apples have cooled, add them to the middle of each puff pastry, and then close them to form triangles. Put the egg wash on the top of the puff pastry, and let them sit in the fridge for 20 minutes. You can either set your timer or watch the clock. Preheat the oven, and score the pastry while your apple turnovers are cooling in the fridge. Preheat the oven to 390 F. You want to be sure that it is hot and ready by the time the turnovers go in. Once your timer for 20 minutes goes off, apply a second layer of egg wash to the top of the pastry. After you do that, use small sharp knife to score the puff pastry in a pattern of your choice.
This is where you can get as creative as you wish, so feel free to use whatever design you would like. Pop the turnovers in the oven, and enjoy. Now it's time to get baking. Pop the turnovers in the oven, and bake for 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the size of the turnovers. Be sure to keep checking them to make sure they don't burn. When you take them out, let them cool for about 10 minutes before serving. Apple turnovers are often served as a breakfast item or for an afternoon snack in France, Go says. In France, apple turnovers are eaten as is, and if it's for breakfast, brunch, coffee, tea, or a fruit juice are commonly paired with apple turnovers. You can also keep unbaked apple turnovers in the freezer for a month. They can make a great presentation when served on a platter in the center of your table for dessert, or you can serve each individually along with vanilla ice cream. This is a fun dessert that you can be really creative with, and everyone you serve it to will be absolutely delighted.